ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, everybody. So today, by Krishna's and Guru Maharaj mercy, we will get an overview of the meanings of 40 verses, and following that, at the conclusion, we will have brief discussion on the key points. So this chapter is entitled Narada's Instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. So these instructions are on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva, we know he himself is an partial expansion of the Lord. So Narad Muni, who is also a partial expansion of the Lord, is instructing Vyasadeva. So that means this should be important even for us also. In this chapter, there are 40 verses. Of 40 verses, only 3 verses are spoken by Vyasadeva ji. Rest 37 verses are spoken by Narad Muni. So this chapter is very, very important for everyone. And the background of the chapter is that, as we discussed in the 4th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that once Vyasadeva ji, he was introspecting, and he said to himself that considering the condition of the people in the Kali Yuga, I split the Veda, original Veda, into 4 parts. And following this, I compiled Mahabharata also. And still, I am not satisfied. What is the reason of my dissatisfaction? So while he was introspecting like this, the thought came to his mind that this is probably due to one reason, that I have not described Krishna's glories sufficiently. And while he was introspecting like this, all of a sudden, Narad Muni, who is a spiritual master of Vyasadeva, reached the cottage of Vyasadeva. So now the 5th chapter starts. As I mentioned, in this chapter there are 40 verses. So those 40 verses covers 7 things. The first, Narad Muni inquires the well-being of Vyasadeva, glorifies him, and asks him, why are you dissatisfied? The next 3 verses spoken by Vyasadeva ji, where he admits, he acknowledges that yes, I am dissatisfied. Then the next set of 15 verses, 158 to 1522, these are the instructions by Narad Muni to Vyasadeva for Srimad Bhagavatam. The 4th thing, Narad Muni gives a brief glimpse of his previous birth and explains how did he become devotee. The 5th thing, Narad Muni advises that one should dedicate one's activities to Lord Krishna and work for the satisfaction of Lord Krishna. The 6th thing, Narad Muni explains the potency of sound vibration. And 7 is the final instruction to Vyasadeva by Narad Muni. So these 7 things are covered in the 40 verses. I'll give you an overview of these 40 verses by each category. So the first thing, as I mentioned, while Vyasadeva ji, he was contemplating the reason for his satisfaction, Narad Muni appears on the scene. Vyasadeva ji welcomes Narad Muni. Narad Muni gets seated. He smiles. He smiles because he knew in the heart what is going to happen now. He knew that Vyasadeva is not satisfied. But still, he asked Vyasadeva that you have done so much. You have done such a great work that initially you manifested the Vedic knowledge and then split into the 4 parts. Then you wrote Mahabharata also. So I think you have done whatever you should have done. But still, why are you dissatisfied? So on this point, Vyasadeva ji very humbly, he replies to Naraji. He says, Maharaj, you are completely correct. I have done all these things, but still my soul is not satisfied. Na atma paritushyate. My soul is still not satisfied. And please, you tell me the root cause of my dissatisfaction. Now, Narad Muni says, how can I tell you the root cause of your dissatisfaction? So, Vyasadeva ji replies very beautifully that you have unlimited knowledge because you have been manifested by Lord Brahma himself. And the second thing, you know all the mysterious things which is not known to anyone because you always worship Lord Krishna, who is the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of all the universes. And the third thing, Vyasadeva says that you are like a sun. The way sun can travel anywhere and illuminate any dark place. Similarly, you have the power, like sun, to give the knowledge to anyone, to illuminate anyone's heart. And you are like an air, the way air can penetrate anywhere in the body of a person. Similarly, you can penetrate in any part of the body. So you have the power to penetrate into my mind and find out what is the root cause of my dissatisfaction. So from this we understand one thing, that in the material world, doctors, they can diagnose our body, they can cure our body, but they cannot read our mind. It's only Krishna, Guru, the pure devotees who have the power to reach to our mind and find out what is troubling us and give us the right solution. Now the third part, Narad Muni starts giving the instructions to Vyasadeva on Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are 15 verses in it, and those 15 verses are divided into 5 categories. So those I will explain a bit later, but let's move on to the next part, where Narada tells about his previous life to Vyasadeva ji. So Narada says, in the previous birth, I was the son of a maid servant, and we happened to receive a number of devotees during the Chaturmas, and we all got busy in serving those devotees. And Narad Muni says that I was fortunate to have the mercy of those devotees because I was self-controlled. I was not like any other ordinary boy who will be interested in playing. And one more thing, that I did not speak more than what is necessary. And Narad Muni continues and says that once, with the permission of those devotees, I took the remnants of their food stuff, and my all sins got vanquished. And I continued to associate and serve those devotees. And with that association, my taste for hearing Krishna Katha started increasing. And when I continued to do it, my taste for hearing Krishna Katha got firmly established. Bhagavatam, it is written as Khalita Mati. Khalita means fall down, interrupted. As Khalita means without any interruption. So Narad Muni says that since he served the pure devotees, associated with them, and started hearing with them. So at one point, he was hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam with a rapt attention. And he continues and he says that over a period of time, I got very much attached to those pure devotees. I obeyed them. I followed their instructions as it is. And the result was that when they left after 4 months, they blessed me with the most confidential knowledge. And we know from Bhagavad Gita what is the most confidential knowledge. Krishna says in the 9th chapter, Raj Vidya Rajguhyam, Pavitram, Rajvidya Rajgoyam. And he says that what I am speaking to you is the king of knowledge. And the king of knowledge means it's about the devotional service. So the sages were so much pleased with the devotional service. It's not the devotional service, rather, in the beginning, it was simply a service unto those devotees. And as he started serving the devotees, he got the opportunity to have the remnants of the Mahaprasad, and he continued to associate with them, continued to hear. Then he started hearing with a rapt attention, which means that he did not want to miss any hearing opportunity. And when those devotees left after Chaturmas, they blessed him with the most confidential knowledge. And the fifth part, Narad Muni mentions that one should dedicate one's activities to Krishna and work for the satisfaction of Krishna. Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsitam yad ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Prabhupada says the best remedy for the threefold miseries. Threefold miseries means the miseries caused by our body and mind. The second, the misery is caused by other living entities. And the third, the misery is caused by the demigods. So Narad Muni says the best remedy to get rid of the threefold miseries is to yad ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. That whatever activities we perform, we keep offering those activities to Krishna. Prabhupada says that this is the most feasible and practical solution for everyone. And Narad Muni says that these three miseries cannot be solved by material activities. And he explains with an example that if a person gets deceased because of drinking milk, then just by drinking the milk, he won't get cured. Because it was due to the drinking of milk, he got sick. Now, if he wants to be cured, then he need to transform the milk into curd. So the curd is made of milk, but since it's transformed with some addition, its effect get changed and it can cure the disease of the person. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that there is an iron rod. Iron rod has got its own property. But if you constantly keep the iron rod in the contact of a fire, after some time, the iron rod will become like a fire. It means the property of the iron rod will get changed into the property of the fire. So similarly, we should convert our material activities into spiritual activities. And the way we bring an iron rod in the contact of fire and the nature of iron rod gets changed into fire, similarly, the nature of our material activities will get changed if we bring those activities in touch with Krishna. Or if we stay in touch with Krishna while performing those activities will get spiritualized. The nature of material activity is that it causes reaction. Reactions are manifested in one of the three types of threefold miseries, Adhyatmik, Adibhautik, Adidevik. But as soon as we offer those activities unto Krishna, we are spiritualizing those activities, and the nature of those material activities get changed, and it brings a different effect. The way the nature of milk get changed by adding some ingredient into it, the way the nature of iron rod get changed by bringing it in contact with fire. Then Narad Muni says that whatever work is done for the satisfaction of Krishna is called Bhakti Yoga. And then he advises that one should remember Krishna while performing his routine activities. And it's not remember, it's constantly remember Krishna while performing our day-to-day activities. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the purport that one should mold his material life in such a way that while performing his duties, he can remember Krishna. Now, the sixth thing on which Narad Muni speaks is the potency of sound vibration. He says to Vyasadeva, let's chant the name of Lord. Vyasadeva is surprised. How come suddenly Narad Muni is saying, chant the name of Lord Krishna? Then Narad Muni says that iti murti abhidhanena mantra murtim amurtikam yajate yagya purusham. He says iti murti abhidhanena. Abhidhana means a sound vibration. And mantra murtim, we know the meaning of murti. Murti means it's a statue or it's a deity. So the way we have the deities made of gold, silver, iron, clay, etc. Similarly, in the spiritual world or even in the material world, there is a deity made of the spiritual sound, which is called mantra murti. We have the spiritual sounds generated by chanting the holy mantra, generated by chanting Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatham, Ramayana, glorifying Krishna. All these various types of spiritual sounds make the transcendental form of Krishna, which is called mantra murti. And Narada says, Yajate Yagya Purusham. Yagya Purusham is the name of Krishna. And Yajate means worship. So Narad Muni says that the intelligent people, they worship the sound form of Krishna. And Narad Muni says that whatever I am telling you, this is based on my experience. Which means even Narad Muni also chants the name of Lord Krishna. And we know that all the times he keeps chanting Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. And the seventh thing is mentioned in the last verse of this chapter. It says, Tvam api adhabra shruta vishrutam vibhu samapyate yena vidam bhuvisitam prakhyahi dukher muhur arditatmanam sanklesha nirvanam pushanti nanyata. Narad Muni tells Vyasadeva that Tvam api adhabra shruta vishrutam vibhu, that you have the vast knowledge of the scriptures. Now what you should do? Prakhyahi. Prakhyahi means describe. Because if you do it, it will satisfy even the hankering of the great people, learned people. Because the learned people, the saints and sages, they want to know more and more about the Lord. And at the same time, Dukkhair Muhur Arditatmanam. And he said there are innumerable entities who are suffering in this material world. So if you describe the knowledge, what you have with you, then it will satisfy not only the suffering living entities, but even the great saints and sages. And the last line of this chapter is very beautiful, where Narad Muni says, Sanklesha Nirvanam Ushanti Nanyata. He says Sanklesha, Sare Sanklesh means all the kleshas, all the inauspicious things. Nirvana means get rid of. Ushanti Nanyata. There is no other way to get rid of all kinds of sufferings. So in this way, Narad Muni mentions about 7 subjects in this chapter. So there's one thing which I did not cover is Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. And there are 15 verses, 158 to 1522. Now we don't have the time to go through those verses in detail, but I'll give you a gist of those verses. In these 15 verses, Narad Muni talks about 5 things. The first 2 verses, 158 and 9, this is the result of diagnosis of Vyasadevji's mind by Narad Muni. So Narad Muni quickly diagnosed the mind and heart of Vyasadeva and identified what is the root cause of his dissatisfaction. And he identified 2 defects. The first defect, he says, Bhavata Anuditam Prayam, Yasho Bhagavato Amalam, Yene Vasavna Tushyeta, Manye Tad Darshanam Akhilam. He says, Bhavata means you. Bhavata Anuditam Prayo, Yasho Bhagavato Amalam. The Praya means almost. Yasha means glories. Bhagavata means Bhagwan. Amala means spotless. He said, you have almost not glorified sufficiently the glories of Lord Krishna. And he says, Yene vasau na tushyeta manne tad darshanam akhilam. Darshanam is philosophy. He says, any philosophy, any writing which does not satisfy Krishna is an inferior writing. So the first defect, you did not glorify Krishna sufficiently in whatever creations you have done so far. You manifested the Vedic knowledge, you split into 4 parts and wrote Mahabharata also. But still, you did not sufficiently glorify Lord Krishna. And the second, he says, Yatha dharma dayaschartha muni varyanu kirtita na tatha vasudevasya mahima hi anuvarnita. He says that you have very nicely described the 4 principles, dharam, arth, kam, moksha. But the way you have described about dharam, arth, kam, moksha, na tatha, tatha means as much, na tatha hi vasudevasya. In the same way, you have not described the glories of Lord Krishna. So one thing we should remember, that when we speak about the Vedic knowledge, which includes 4 Vedas, 18 Puranas, 108 Upanishad, that was all manifested by Vyasadeva himself. And Vyasadeva himself was not satisfied by manifesting all those things. So the message we get, that if the author himself is not satisfied with what he created, so how we would be satisfied? How our soul will be happy by reading all those things? And the next 2 verses, Narad Muni mentions the 2 types of literature. The first literature is Na Yad Vachas Chitra Padam Hari Yesho. This is a very beautiful verse. Narad Muni says that the literature which does not glorify Lord is like a place of cross pilgrimage. We know the nature of cross. They like to hover over the filthy things. They like to go to the filthy and dirty things. So he says, any literature which does not glorify the Lord is considered a place of pilgrimage or cross by saintly people, and they do not take interest in this kind of literature. And on the other hand, the literature which describes the glories of Krishna, even if it is imperfectly composed, still it is read, it is sung, it is relished by the devotees. Third thing, Narad Muni mentions that without the devotion service, nothing is valuable. He says, Nashkarmyam Achyuta Bhava Varjitam. Achyuta Bhava Varjitam. These 3 are the keywords. Achyuta means Krishna, Bhava means the devotion, Varjitam means without. Anything devoid of Krishna, anything without Krishna, it can be anything, it can be anything. Na shobhate, doesn't look, it doesn't look good. Narad Muni says that anything you describe that is separate in vision from the Lord will simply react in different names and forms just to agitate the mind. So Narad Muni wanted to tell Vyasadeva that you have created the 4 Vedas, Mahabharata, and other things, but the Lord is not glorified. So that's why those things which are named as Vedas, Puranas and all, those things have agitated your mind. And then he scolds Vyasadeva very strongly. He says, Jugupsitam dharma krite anushashita swabhava raktasya mahan vyatikrama. He says, you have done a very condemned job. And vyatikrama means very unreasonable. Why? Narad Muni says that people in general are naturally inclined to gratify their senses. So we do not have to teach them how to gratify the senses. But what you have told them, how to gratify the senses while giving them certain rules and regulations. So in the Kali Yuga, what people will do, they will not care for the provisions, they will not care for the rules and regulations. Rather, they will simply start gratifying their senses more and more because they would say that this is given in the scriptures. And on this, Prabhupada gives the example of the meat eating. That meat eating is prescribed in the Vedic literature, but for those people who can't stay without eating meat. So the people who can't stay without eating meat, for them, Veda says, okay, you can eat the meat, but you have to follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 provisions and rules and regulations are there. But in the current age, we know that the people, they do not care about the rules and regulations, but they go on gratifying their senses and keep eating meat. So Narad Muni is very strongly condemning Vyasadeva, Jugupsitam. It's a verily condemned work what you have done. And Mahan Vyatikrama, it's very much unreasonable what you have done. And the fourth thing Narad Muni mentions, that the devotion service is infallible. Narad Muni says, Tektva sadharmam charanam bhujam harir. Bhajanna apakvot patet yado tato yadi. He says, if anyone gives up everything and takes up to the devotion service and still he falls down, then there is no loss. There is no loss. But on the other hand, if a man performs his duty very perfectly but doesn't serve Krishna, then it's simply useless efforts. And Narad Muni mentions very nicely one thing. Tasyeva heto prayate to kovido tallabhyate yat brahmatam upar yadha. He says that a human life, one should endeavor for something which is not obtainable even after wandering from topmost planet, Brahma's planet, down to the Patal Loka. And what is that? It is service unto Krishna and going back to our eternal father's home, Golok Dham. And in the conclusion, the fifth thing is instruction to Vyasadeva. He says, Idham Vishwam Bhagwan Ivetaro. Narad Muni tells Vyasadeva that this universe is Krishna himself. Krishna manifests, maintains, destroys this universe. So you should glorify Krishna. And Narad Muni tells Vyasadeva that Pradesh Matram, I have just given you the synopsis. Pradesh Matram, just given you the synopsis. But you know everything. So Vyasadeva ji asked Narad Muni that, Maharaj, how do I know everything? So Narad Muni says that you are Amog Drik. Amog Drik means your vision is perfect. And why my vision is perfect? Narad Muni says, Paramatmanam Kalam. That you are the expansion of Krishna himself. And that's why you are a Janma. That you are unborn means you are eternal. But you have manifested in this material world for only one thing, which is Prajatam Jagata Shivaya. Prajatam Jagata Shivaya means that you have taken birth for the well-being of all the living beings in this universe. So that's why Adhiganya. Adhiganya means describe. What? Abhyudaya. Abhyudaya means pastimes. Pastimes of whom? Mahanubhava. Pastimes of Lord Krishna. And finally, in the 22nd verse, Narad Muni tells Vyasadeva that you should remember one thing, that purpose of any kind of yajna, dan, tapa, reading scriptures, culminates in describing Lord's pastimes. So this is an overview of the 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1. As I mentioned, there are 40 verses. They talk about the 7 subjects or the 7 things. And within those 7 things, there is a one category which is Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva, which covers 5 subjects. So with these words, I would like to give a viram. So thank you so much, all the devotees,